What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel, and as usual, I got a fucked up story. It's a love story, in fact, about a man who wanted to eat his own dick with another man. This is the disturbing tale of Vernon Brandis and Armin Meiven, aka the Rottenberg Cannibal. Armin was born on December 1st, 1961 in Eastern Germany and had a pretty unloving, shitty family. Armin's mother was 40 and his father was 21 when they got married, which, marrying someone twice your age is a pretty big gap. Sounds like his mom got herself a nice young trophy husband, but even that wasn't enough. His mother was a manipulative, jealous woman who was always accusing her husband of cheating on her and being overly possessive of Armin. His mother and father didn't really show much interest in Armin, and his mother pretty much just had him to strap down his father and lock him into the marriage. Oldest trick in the book. That didn't work out because when he was 6 or 7, his two half-brothers who were older than him left home. His father left soon after as well, and he never seen any of them ever again. So he's just left alone with his mother in a giant mansion. He was pretty much a mama's boy, and she ordered him around the house and yelled at him in public. She would even accompany her son on dates and on field exercises when he was in the military. If that wasn't weird enough, she even posted a label on his bedroom door saying child's room, which he never removed, even after she died. I'm getting some serious Norman Bates vibes here. So having your half-brothers and father walk out on you at such a young age is gonna have some traumatizing effects, to say the least. Not only that, but he was left with his abusive, unloving mother, so needless to say, Armin was a little weird. He created an imaginary brother named Frankie who he would vent his frustrations and cannibalistic thoughts to. As a child, he would read Robinson Crusoe and Hansel and Gretel and really focus on the cannibal parts of the stories, which is kinda where it all began. At the age of 12, Armin started to fantasize about disemboweling and eating his friends so they would become part of him and stay with him forever. A common characteristic of cannibals and zoophiliacs is a feeling of loneliness and loss and never wanting to lose people. Considering he was depraved of love and lost the majority of his family at such a young age, this sort of makes sense. When Armin was older, around 20, he joined the military, which would give him kind of a normal life, a schedule, and something to do with his time, other than sitting around fantasizing about cannibalism all day. During this time, he began experimenting sexually. He went on dates with women, but they weren't very successful. He also had many sexual encounters with other soldiers. He overall had confusion about his sexuality. He saw himself as bisexual. Armin started drinking pretty heavily and got into 2 car accidents because he was drunk, which got him kicked out of the military and right back to his mother in that big old mansion. He was in the army for 12 years and at this point he was 32 years old. His mother was much older, in her 70s, and she was sick and couldn't really look after herself anymore. She also lived in this huge mansion, so he said, fuck it, may as well stay with mom. Armin went to school and became a computer engineer for a bank. The 90s rolled around and the internet became accessible to everyone, allowing people from all over the world to connect online. Armin discovered that other people felt similar feelings he did and discovered a website called the Cannibal Cafe, where people with cannibalistic fetishes could talk about and share their fantasies. A lot of it was people role-playing that they wanted to be eaten strictly as fantasy, such as people fantasizing about killing people and eating their bodies, or wanting to be eaten themselves. Now, if you think wanting to eat someone's fucked up, actually wanting to be eaten is twice as fucked up. So Armin was pretty arts and crafty and bought meat from a butcher. He cut and crafted it to look like human meat, took pictures of it, and told people that he had done the real thing. I can't imagine he was the only one lying about this, but it got him attention and a little bit of internet fame. That sweet, sweet social media endorphin rush that people are so addicted to these days. For a person who didn't receive much love from his mother or anyone, you can see how this could make him feel pretty loved and good about himself. In 1999, Armin came home from work and found his mother dead. You'd think he would feel sadness considering she was the closest to him and he spent so much time with her, and maybe do some weird shit like wear her dress and a wig or maybe even her skin around the house, but nope, he was just like, cha-ching, I just inherited a mansion. So this was a big change for Armin because he was free from his mother and didn't have to worry about her anymore. Plus, with the internet and being able to communicate with like-minded people, he felt a sense of freedom he never felt before. He made the place his own, redecorating by turning one of the bedrooms into his cannibal lair where he could do all of his cannibalistic activities. The slaughter room had a cage, meat hooks, and of course, no windows. You don't need anyone peeking in through there. So at this point, he had a mansion and access to the internet and no one in his way, so his fantasy was pretty much a go to become reality. He began going on websites and trying to find people. A lot of people would agree to do it, but then back out at the last second. His post said, "I'm in search for a young boy between the ages of 18 and 30 years old. If you have a normal build body and you are willing to die, then come to me. I'm butchering you and eating your horny flesh." Armin wanted to find someone who was willing to be eaten and didn't want to take anyone against their will, which tells me he's not an evil person or wanted to cause any harm to anyone who didn't want it. He wanted a consenting, like-minded person to do this with. He even managed to get someone all the way to his creepy mansion. They chatted and talked about it for a little bit, but the person got nervous and changed their mind. Armin let them go without any problems. Armin started to make papier-mâché bodies, got a mannequin, and took pictures of it and posted to the cannibal websites, fooling people into thinking he had experience. This was bringing him a lot of attention, and people were becoming fans and idolizing him. He was getting closer and closer to acting out his sick fantasy. It didn't take long for Armin to hit the jackpot, and he found a guy. You would think it would be hard to find someone willing to sacrifice themselves to be eaten, but not really. Vernon Brandis answered the call. He was 39 years old and from Germany. He worked as a software programmer similar to Armin. He had a bizarre fascination with body mutilation and offered to pay his ex-boyfriend money to bite off his penis. His ex-boyfriend said in court, "Vernon kept urging me to bite off his penis. He always achieved orgasm when I placed my teeth around it. He wanted to be bitten everywhere, but the penis was his fantasy, his obsession." He also had a relationship with a woman named Alexandria who started a relationship with him in 1996, and things were going well to the point where they talked about getting married and having children. The relationship ended, however, when he came out as homosexual. She said he was one of the nicest people she had ever met and was always smiling and joking. She couldn't imagine that he willingly went to Armin's house to have his penis cut off and eaten. So after Brandis responded to Armin's post, Armin answered Brandis' message with, "After you're dead, I'll take you out and expertly carve you up, except for a pair of knees and some fleshy trash skin, cartilage, tendons. There won't be much left of you." Brandis responded saying he had heard that ground up knees would be good as fertilizer. So hot. So they were communicating via the internet and started talking about how they were gonna go about doing this thing. Brandis expressed that he wanted his penis to be cut off, fried on the stove, and eaten. Armin was all for that because he wanted to do it the way the victim wanted to, because he was the one sacrificing himself, and Armin respected that. So they made the plan to meet up, and on March 9th, shit was going down. So they met up and fucked because all this talk of eating each other and ground up kneecaps just really got the blood flowing. So, first things first, you gotta get fucked up. You need to get drunk, take some sleeping pills, and just kinda be out of it, which they both agreed on this. This wasn't Armin trying to coerce Brandis into doing this. They did this so Brandis wouldn't suffer or feel pain. But now they are gonna cut off his dick, so how painless can you possibly make this? They also agreed that the whole thing would be filmed, so Armin set up his camera, got the right angle, made sure that shit was in focus, and filmed the whole thing from start to finish. Once Brandis was feeling the effects of the drugs and alcohol, Armin sliced off his dick, and needless to say, it wasn't painless. Brandis screamed bloody murder for about 30 seconds, which 30 seconds may not seem like a long time, but When someone's screaming for 30 seconds straight, it's kind of a long time. Armin described the blood as spouting like a water fountain, which I can imagine. There is a lot of blood flowing around that area. After Brandis was done screaming, he tried to eat a raw piece of it, but it was too tough and chewy. So Armin took the penis and fried it on a pan with some garlic and salt and pepper. Ultimately, Armin ended up burning the fucking thing to the point where it wasn't even edible. Of all the things to not fuck up, it's cooking a guy's penis who agreed to sacrifice himself. Awkward. Armin serves it on a plate with a glass of wine, very delectable, very fancy. It tasted like shit, and he had to throw it in the garbage. I mean, seriously? That has to be one of the most disappointing things of all time. I mean, this is your fantasy. Your entire life has led up to this moment. You finally get the balls to do it. You go through with cutting off your dick, probably one of the most precious things to you. It's painful. You bleed everywhere. And then, it doesn't even taste good? Jesus. So that was it. Armin put Brandis into a bath and just kind of let him bleed out. While Armin was waiting for Brandis to die, he read a Star Trek book. Like you would. After 10 hours of waiting, Armin figured he should just end it himself. He approached Brandis with a large kitchen knife. He hesitated and stood over him. He said he wasn't sure if he should ask God for forgiveness or the devil. He kissed him before slitting his throat, finally ending this totally fucked up episode of Cooking with Armin. So Armin got to work. He chopped up Vernon's body and stored it in the deep freeze next to his second favorite food, takeaway pizza, and buried his skull in the garden. So now it was time to reap the benefits of all of his hard work. Trying to find someone, fooling people into thinking he had experience, meeting different people, people backing out, and ultimately the killing and butchering. Now it was time to feast. For his meals, he used his best cutlery and decorated his dinner table with candles. He made it very fancy because these were special occasions whenever he would feast on Brandis. He tasted like pork. With every bite, my memory of him grew stronger, Armin said. After a few months of eating Brandis, his stash started to dry up and he needed another victim. So Armin goes back onto the websites and posts pictures he took of Brandis, sorta bragging to everybody in the community what he had done. And of course, the vorophiliacs and cannibals love this, sending him lots of positive feedback. But it also got him some unwanted attention. One of the people who saw Armin's post alerted the authorities, and 5 months later, police went to Armin's house. The police found the meat under the pizza boxes, and when they took a closer look, they thought it looked pretty odd and seemed to match what the mystery caller said. They had discovered Brandis' remains. Armin admits everything to the police, explained what happened very matter-of-factly. He's like, yeah, I met him on the internet and he let me slay and murder him. No big deal, right? He was arrested immediately. Armin's defense was that Brandis was willing and consenting. He drove himself all the way to Armin's house to do this after all. Armin had his receipts showing the emails and the video footage. Plus, cannibalism wasn't even illegal in Germany. Armin had no remorse because he didn't feel like he did anything wrong. I took his life, and I really admit that, but I want the court to understand that I did nothing that ran contrary to his expressed wishes. He wanted it so badly. It was his heart's desire. He had the kick of a lifetime. Armin expressed the incredible feeling he got having ultimate power over another man and slicing him up into individual portions. Armin said that after eating Brandis, he felt much better and more stable. The jury actually had to watch 20 minutes of the video of all this crazy shit, which was probably extremely traumatizing. So he goes to trial and originally was given 8 years for manslaughter, but the general public was pissed and it caused a lot of outrage. He had a retrial and was ultimately sentenced to life in prison for disturbing the peace of the dead and murder for sexual pleasure, where he remains to this day. He's done interviews and seems to understand that what he did was wrong, saying that fantasies sometimes have to stay as fantasies. He also became a straight up vegetarian where he doesn't eat meat of any kind anymore. Ultimately, after reading the story and seeing interviews with Armin, I feel kinda sorry for the guy. He seems like a pretty reasonable person aside from the cannibalism. He didn't seem to have any hatred or anger towards his mother. He took care of her and just kind of waited for her to die. He put in the time and effort into finding the person who was willing and wanted to do this with him, even letting people who changed their minds go. He was respectful to Brandis and respected his wishes and how he wanted to go about things. He seems like a reasonable person who happened to have a fucked up childhood and an even more fucked up sexual fetish for cannibalism. Plus he had the perfect environment for his fantasies to run wild. He didn't seem too concerned about the police or trying not to get caught. He seemed like he had absolutely no thought in his mind that what he was doing wasn't right. It's a fascinating story of the complexities of human sexuality and behavior, and asks a lot of questions. Does someone have the right to sacrifice themselves for sexual pleasure? Should people with this fetish seek professional help? Is there even professional help for them to seek? At what point does a sexual fetish become a mental illness? And is Armin a danger to society?